Hey y'all, it's Renegayde, and it's time to spill Reali-Tea on all things Drag Race Philippines Slaysian Royale. The Ultimate Battle Royale is officially on, so make sure you like and subscribe for more, as you're not going to want to miss a single drop of content this season. On this episode, we get sustainable while being fashionable, as our final 10 Slaysians compete to put together a look made out of fossilized cacao leaves. Which queens were in full bloom and who withered away? Let's talk about it, but before we begin, let me introduce my co-host, and he could touch his Boob-ay and his Kep at the same time. It's QuackrrJack!
Mabuhay!
Mabuhay, Jack, or should I say Sawadika, in honor of our favorite queen, Miss Pangina Heels, being guest judge, right? We know we know she's your favorite.
So anyways, let's get to the episode.
Jack, was the design challenge everything you need? Because we know that you love a good fashion challenge.
This was amazing. I loved it. It was conventionally unconventional kind of thing. No, it was conventional. If you couldn't work with this material, you weren't ready for a sewing challenge anyway, so who cares? You don't matter. Thank you. So yes, it was everything. I loved it. I cannot believe we got such a fair kind of design challenge as well, and that made it feel so good. Like, it felt so good that we got such a fair design challenge.
I mean, we could kind of just jump right into the specifics here of that and kind of get into some more specifics about the queens as we kind of get into some more details about the looks throughout the episode, because that was pretty much kind of what the storylines were. That's kind of how design challenges are. There was pretty much focus on our tops and our bottoms, and everybody else was kind of just swept away to the back burner because they were safe. But we get a really cool twist, I think, on it too, because initially I thought it was just going to be like just random leaves, but it turns out they actually have them hand dyed by locals, which I thought was really cool. That they're reaching out to the locals in order for them to assist them with creating this challenge for something on like a global level, and they ultimately hand dye them into different colors. And there was a mini challenge that we can kind of get into here first. It was kind of, I guess, like musical chairs, but make it like talking about your Kep and your Boob-ay, and make sure you're touching the right body part. This was goofy. It went on for far too long, but it was goofy.
I loved it. I thought it was the best thing ever. I was like, okay, so this is pretty easy. And when girls were messing up, I was like, she didn't even throw in any tricks yet, and like half the cast were already gone. I was like, girl, if you hear Kep, the next thing you have to do is Boob-ay. And it's like, Kep, Boob-ay, Kep, Boob-ay. And the girls were like just messing up completely. It wasn't until she started giving the girls like, okay, now you have to say it like 17 times in a row, and then I'll switch to someone random. I was like, maybe you caught off guard, but you should be paying attention. And then they had to switch around where they put their hands during the like second round. That's when things got really difficult.
I mean, it was pretty fun though. I won't lie, I was invested by the end of it, but I was just like, can this almost be its own show?
It really was. I was like, this is so fun. I was like, I'm here to watch this. Like,
well, Brigiding ends up winning the challenge, and she also gets a special reward. Her reward is that not only does she get to pick her own color first, but she also gets to choose which queen goes last. And she ends up picking Suki doll, who ultimately gets stuck with teal. I'm not sure how the other order of the girls were decided, other than it was just maybe
it was based on how they got
in the order.
No, it was based on who got out first. Like,
Oh,
if you got
I
out
wasn't even paying
first, you were
attention to that.
last.
There you go.
Yeah. So
sense.
whoever made
Okay.
second place, Kitty Space got like so. Yeah. So it was really cool because it was like, oh, so now everyone gets like the mini challenge really did matter in that sense, and it was like choosing the color seems really important. But later in the workroom, Suki even tells people like about it. Like, if you're a good designer, you can make it work with whatever you're given. So like, the color doesn't really matter to me, and it shouldn't matter to you.
Mhm.
Which I kind of agree with her that it shouldn't matter. You're just gonna have to make it work. But at the same time, I think it's one of those psychological things. Like, it's gonna get a girl in her head. But Suki was unfazed. She was unbothered. As JT said, she was unfuckable with. Like, go back to alter ego. It's the best part of that last season. But anyways,
I was gonna say, do you think teal was the worst color anyways? Because I mean, I could see in some worlds where some might think it would be. I don't know if it was, because I feel like teal you could kind of get away with like some sort of denim-esque sort of number, and
Ah,
there's a lot of different other ways you could go with it too, like the way Suki went Mother Nature with it. So like you have the blues, you have the greens. There's a lot of different ways I think you could use teal. I feel like
I
purple would have been the hardest.
I don't think there was necessarily a hardest color per se. I mean, teal wasn't my first choice, clearly, but like, I was a little nervous about more of the lighter colors at first because I was like, how are you going to do this when you only have these 900 leaves? Because they did have a leaf total, right? That each girl had. And so I was like, it might be a little difficult. But then they told us, like, oh, they're getting fabrics and stuff to use with it to like help with the construction and stuff. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay, so anyone can make any of this work. You just have to figure out what looks good and how you're going to manipulate the leaves in a way to like make your outfit look amazing. And what I was most surprised by actually was when Venus Deluxe chose white. I was like, white, and you have to understand, it was not white. It was like a beigey kind of creamy white with like it wasn't pure white. And I was like, it was very color of like muslin, very like almost the color of wicker somewhat, but a little bit less bright. And I was like, a lot of undergarments have the same color, and I'm thinking to myself, that's interesting. She chose this. This was her choice. And I'm like, was this the right choice, girl? Are you sure about this one? And I just wasn't sure. That was like not the worst, but it was such a, I guess, plain kind of palette to begin with. It gives you a lot of creativity, but it also doesn't have as much of, I would say, as much of a direction given to you. So if you're not a girl who generally like has a lot of creative thoughts or wants to just go wild, this could be a very difficult challenge getting that color.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that I think are associated with each color that you kind of just generally go in just off the
Hmm.
top. So I mean, there's always that you can always rely on, but yeah, I don't know if there necessarily was one that I would say is worse than the other than maybe just based off of your interpretation of it.
Right.
It just kind of it's what inspires you to move forward with the rest of your outfit, and I think what we saw too is that like there really wasn't any one color that kind of stood out as bad or good. It was just how they utilized it. Because some of the colors that were on the bottom were ones that I thought that someone could have done something well with, but we saw what they ended up coming up with. So,
There
um,
were some choices. There were
um,
some choices.
we kind of start off with the safe girls, I guess, first right off the bat here. We have Bernie, Brigiding, Khianna, and Yuhua. And I think we also kind of agreed with the order too, right, Jack? Like, we do agree these are the safe girls, the tops were the tops, the bottoms were the
Oh,
bottoms.
100%. The only kind of change I can see is like if you felt a girl could have been like in the bottom two out of the bottom, or if you felt like a girl could have been from the top three into the top two instead of just being the safe girl. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the only way in which I was like, I can understand having a difference of opinion there. But every girl who's in the safe category either really brought it or their look was very polished, but it just wasn't as exciting as other girls' looks, right?
You just called Yuhua polished?
I said, or their looks just weren't as exciting as others, but we can get into it. Let's get into it. Okay. Let's
Yeah, let's
start
get into it.
from the top of the safe to the bottom of the safe, in my opinion, which I think we all agreed upon, is first girl who misses out on the top is Khianna. Now she had yellow. She had this beautiful dress. It was very stylish. She had a very, very, very elegant flow to her. There was a train and it looked so good. And at first I thought she was going to be in the top because she came out as one of the first girls on the runway. So I really thought first time I was like, oh, she's going to be in the top because if you noticed, the first girl who came out on the runway was the girl who was in last place on all of our minds. So I was like, oh, like I really wasn't sure where we're gonna go. But Khianna just misses out slightly. She has a way of interpreting this as like sunlight and the like little bits of white and jewels that she used on her outfit to really kind of stand out. And I think she did an amazing job here. I just think that what she ended up with, unfortunately, like was a little too simple. The fabric wrapped around her body was nice, and it went well with the cacao leaves that she had, and she did a great job with the styling It just happened to be that she slightly missed out, and even the hair was like great. The only thing that was a little questionable was maybe the beige shoe. I kind of wanted a yellow shoe. I know people hate yellow shoes. I love a yellow shoe. Okay, I know it can look cheap, but a yellow shoe would have killed it. At least for me. For me. Next up is Brigiding, and I want to give you the chance because I know I just splurged about everything. What did you think of Brigiding's red look? Reminder, she is the girl that got to choose her choice of color first.
I
How
feel
did
like
you feel about
there's
this?
like a kind of common theme with a lot of the safe girls where they kind of chose like a kind of similar silhouette in some degrees, in like to varying degrees, right? And this one kind of felt like maybe like a little slightly step down from what we got from Khianna's version of it. Like Khianna's version felt like the most polished, and then I would say Brigadine's did really well, but there was just a slight issue, I think, of polish compared to how Kiana's looked for me, as to why I would rank her just slightly lower. But otherwise, I'd still think it's a pretty solid look. And I feel like a lot of the girls are bringing that plastique silhouette kind of thing that we got from the farm to fashion runway that she was known for in varying degrees. And I think she gave me the most kind of like representation of that look. So both were
Um,
high, but I
yeah,
see reasons why they were not in the top. Like I said, I feel like there was an originality thing, I feel like, since they all kind of went with very similar ideas. And I think that's why probably the majority of them were not in the top.
I really felt like Brigiding was almost there. Like she would have beaten out Khianna had it not been for a few detail issues, specifically seeing her panties whenever she was walking down the runway. I think that's a very big glaring issue as a drag queen in a design challenge. It's just like you should be covering up your undergarments really well. It's like it's one of the a few details you have to look at. You know, she picks red. It looks great on her. She has this huge collar. She has this small two like cacao leaves in her hair. She chose an orange wig, which is like kind of a choice in a red. It went really well, but if you're going to do that, you have to be very careful. And one thing she did do with her shoes that I noticed was she put cacao leaves on her shoes to match her outfit. And I loved that she had this large collar, really exposing the neck, but everything else being so hidden, while having this triangle in the waist and a small train in the back. It looked great. Again, it needed to be brought down a little bit lower so we didn't see her panties. But that being said, I think we get to the really like safe, didn't try or didn't do anything really inventive girls next. And I think right there is where we get to Bernie. You know, I love Bernie. Um, but her look in this pink, beautiful color, looks great on her. It's a good idea that she has, but it kind of felt like when she walked out on the stage, we kind of knew what was going to happen because of how, dare I say, similar we have seen the silhouette. It's almost like an X through her body, like covering the shoulders. The mid piece is a corset with um, a little bit of shape on the side to not give it just a corset look. And then on the bottom part, we have a kind of like the end of the X where it like shoots out from her bottom of her thigh. So there's a cutout where we see her like hips and it looks good. And then she used this fabric on the bottom, which is the most questionable thing. And I think the real issue, we were all like, what's this about? It's like draped fabric where it just kind of looked like she almost was going to stumble upon it. It looked like she walked on it multiple times. And it
Yep,
just kind
she
of felt like it was put
was.
in there. So it was just weird. I think the beads, in addition to her outfit, really went well, but there were just things that just didn't work with this, and it was mainly that bottom section.
Yeah, I agree. The bottom section of it was a little rough, but like everything else of it, from like the hips up, were fine. Or I would say from the cutouts up, were fine. Um, Yuhua, though, I think she's very lucky that there's only a bottom three and not a bottom four, because like
Yeah,
the way that she put these feathers on, or the leaves on, there's no like rhyme or reason to it whatsoever to like how it makes the pattern on it. Like it feels like there's like and I mean there's another girl who did not go for a specifically asymmetrical look, who is in the top. But like, there's a way to kind of like do it so it's symmetrical, right? And it just felt like Yuha was just kind of like, "Meh, let me just kind of throw them on in the dark and see what works here." Like, it
It
looks so
did
messy.
feel that way. Yeah, it was very much reminiscent of Bernie's, but downplay it, where it was like the kind of X thing. We don't get a collar that goes up around like how we had in Brigading's. And the way she used her cacao leaves, most of it looks like she just folded them in half, like hot dog style. So it's very long vertically. And I think the choices in the fabric were really bad because you can see under it, it's very shiny. So it started to make some of the cacao leaves look shiny, and it gave that terrible texture that a lot of that fabric does. It kind of looked like a tarp almost, cut up into strips and used that way. And so it started to give off more cheap than it was like together. She did have a fun idea of like these, I want to say like lines of train, because she, it looks like she used a piece of fabric to put the cacao leaves on, and she had multiple lines, so there's like all these different ribbons essentially coming off of her. But she does a clear shoe that looks a mess. She has a wig that's yellow spiked up like fox ears almost, and has the red bang and the red tips on the fox and the red in the back. And she brought out these black glasses, and I was like, the styling is such an issue. I was ready to throw it in the garbage just for that alone. But our bottom three did something that saved Yuha from the bottom, and she is very lucky, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I could see reasons why I would put her in the bottom three, or why anybody else would throw her in the bottom three. I probably think she's right where she's at, but I still think it feels like she should have had a talking to for this, right?
Yeah, I would have. I think I would have been like, I really need you to look at what you're doing, because she made similar problems to the girl who had the worst looking. Can we start with them first? I'd like to end on a high note if we can.
Yeah, yeah, sure. We can
Um,
go ahead and we can start with the bottoms.
So number one, worst bottom of them all, Arizona Brandy. This was shocking, I think, to everyone. She chose orange. She has this nice, like, plumaged headpiece in her orange hair. It, like, everything from the neck or shoulders up were so good, right? She had this showgirl kind of esque look in there, and then instead of using a bunch of the cacao leaves, it looked like she had a fan. She just threw a bunch of them, and I was like, oh, so you wasted them? And there's only cacao leaves from like part of the center of one side of her corset up through her shoulder, and everything else was this fabric. And just like Yuha's, the fabric was very shiny and it bunched poorly together to make it look really cheap. And that was the worst part of it, was that everything was going so well, and then she used this fabric so poorly. On the top part of like the bustier, she had made into these like ridges where she constantly sewed over just folded ridges of it, and it kind of looked good. It gave it a shape, it gave it a different style. But everywhere else, from I want to say like the waist down, it just looks like it was bunched up together to try to make it into some kind of shape, and it looked terrible. They even had to tell her to spin around so they could see how badly bunched it was in the back. She barely had any cacao leaves, but her hair and her styling was so good on this. It's just her outfit was so bad, and I was so bad. I was so mad. I was like, this sucks.
It's funny because, like, from a distance, she's kind of reading like Valentina in the face, and like how gorgeous she is. But it's like that outfit is just so bad, and it just you didn't even embrace the materials. That is rule number one. Kimchi said it: embrace the materials, and you literally just stuck them on your shoulder. Yeah, this was rough.
And
Um,
I think you were so right about that embracing the materials, because she did try a issue with the cacao leaves of like turning them into strips but still being on the cacao leaf, and it did not work well. And I think she realized that, and so she minimized how many cacao leaves she had on her, and it was just a mess.
it was yeah. They weren't even really giving leaves anymore. Like I don't know what she did to these.
It left shredded. She didn't use enough. It was like, if you're gonna do this, you might as well have just taken them off and made them into strips themselves, and not even had made them leaves and then use them in a different way. But that kind of defeats the purpose. So I don't know.
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know how much better I would be able to make a look much better than this, but like I'm not there, so yeah.
Real.
This was rough. This was rough. Someone else who I think also had a very very rough night, and I think the bottom two was very justified, and that was Ivory Glaze. This was not a good look either at all, and there's literally really nothing even there other than like her little kind of like swimsuit, and she also I feel like
Yeah.
destroyed her leaves and ruined these beautiful black leaves. Like I almost would have taken Arizona and Ivory. I almost would have just taken them just going the Lala reroute and just kind of glue a little bit of the glue a
Oh,
few of the leaves to the front of your corset. At least they
I
wouldn't have
think.
destroyed the leaves like they did.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I do think, in her defense, Ivory Glaze tried to use her leaves well, and she gave us more of a fun shape. It was very like that V swimsuit thing, and she had these like shoulders that were really fun. And if that had kept up throughout, it would have been great. But from the shoulders down, it she just tried to add gold to really like accentuate the black because she was worried about it. She put two cacalis on the side of her face between her eye and on her hair, and it looked great. But then that was kind of it. It was really just like leaves down the V and barely nothing else left. There's not enough on the front part to really cover much. There's not a lot on the back part to cover much. And then they talked about how her styling was messy, and I gotta agree. Like, there's a little too much going on here because she looks like if you're going to be in a swimsuit, why do you have so many of these things? And actually, they asked her in the workroom not to do a swimsuit. They're like, be careful because this looks very swimsuity. And she's like, oh no, it won't be one. And then what did she give us? She said, oh, I ran out of time, so I just had to have something to walk down there. I said, not acceptable.
And
Um,
why are the shoes a completely like the shoes are neither like gold, yellow, or black?
Well, and that was another thing. It's all the styling. I think her shoes were slightly gold, but they were just a different shade of gold. So it was like the yellowy gold versus the like muted gold. And like it kind of was like, okay, her makeup did kind of both, so it kind of was okay. But honestly, they talked about how she has these long ass legs, and it's great she's using them, but everything is so exposed, and there just was nothing there at the same time. And I think she's just a girl that's really been relying on body, and it kind of reminds me of Georges in her first season, especially when she wrapped the fabric around her and said this'll do, and they gave her the win. I was like, girl, bye.
Not that
um
that'll do, girl.
it was a
You
that'll
did
do.
not just that'll do her. Oh god, no.
It was a very that'll do. And you know what, here's the difference between our the two girls in the bottom versus the girl who was safe, who was still in the bottom. And let's talk about it. It's Siam. And this is surprising because Siam has been doing so good in the competition. So this is her first like kind of bottomish placement, not bottom two, but she has this beautiful look, beautiful shoulders. She chose brown. She has this fun cylinder blonde hair, and she did like a little bow with the cacalis on it and some detailing here, and it worked really well. She had a huge breastplate on, and the goal was to put wiring around the breastplate to have the brown around there, and then create a bit of a mid area, and then these like straps down to a flourishing kind of like gown thing. So it was a very exposed leg. But there were so many issues here. I think that the she didn't either have enough cacalis for the middle, or they started falling off of the wire. So we just saw the wire exposed on the breastplate. We saw that she didn't have enough cacalis or fabric to cover the white straps that she had used to make the dress on the back side of them, so we can see the white and the brown. And because she ran out of material, it looks like, or didn't have enough time to finish it, after making this huge plumed like mermaid style at the bottom dress, that we just see her like panty lines. And they even commented her g-string kind of thing looked like granny panties kind of thing. Like this
Yeah,
thong was
Pangina
just,
went off on her. Like
and you know what, maybe
it
it's
was
because she was
deserved,
there.
but
Yeah, it was.
it was like, and I don't actually, I don't think it's necessarily. Well, okay, let me take it back because I think just Pangina has a very direct way of speaking. Like, because if you
Hmm.
listen to what she's saying, she's not being like she's not tearing you down.
All the
She's
time.
giving legitimate critiques. It's just because maybe she's a little bit louder and maybe again a little bit more direct, but it's not negative. It it's just harsh, and I was very like, ooh, like some girls. I think they need some tough love. And
Yeah,
I'm
and
very glad that that was given tonight, I think, because I think Siam needs. She was doing so good, and for her to come out in this, at least like the top, like I understand what the vision is, right? I get it,
mhm,
but like from the basically the breastplate to where everything starts on the
her
top of
knees.
the basically her
Oh,
knees, it's rough, it's rough. But I
and
get the vision
yeah,
versus the
you
other
can
two.
see what she wanted to do. And I think one of the this is what separates it is she tried to manipulate these cacao leaves, use them in a different way, and she swung at something. We knew what she was going for, even if it wasn't good and didn't come out the way it should have. She really went for it. And I think Arizona and Ivory both were too afraid to do something, and that's why they deserve to be in the bottom over her because Siam might have failed. But certain parts of her outfit really worked together. Give her another day in more cacao leaves, her outfit would have been miles ahead of theirs no matter what.
Hmm.
Because she went a little too far in one direction, not maybe not having the time, or maybe not just maybe she didn't use her time wisely. Like you can see her panty was showing, and it should have been brought down. The little skirt thing. I think there was so many good ideas here, but yes, she's definitely deserving of the bottom placement, and Yuha is so lucky for that. um,
Hmm. Yuha got
now,
very lucky. Let's talk about our
yeah,
top three though, because I think they
oh
they they
yes,
definitely need to be talked about. Um,
the
let's
most.
let's talk about maybe the one that missed out on the top, maybe the one that we were expecting to be in the top the most coming into this, and that was
Well,
Miss Suki Doll. And
okay, into
we
this.
can't say that's necessary. I don't think she got put here because of the color. I don't feel like if she got any other color that would have maybe changed the results. I
I don't think it has
do.
anything to do with the color at all.
No, I don't. Because clearly she's able to conceptualize and come out with something just amazing for the runway.
Hmm.
I do feel like they kind of maybe nitpicked her a little bit because I personally I don't have any negatives to this other than maybe it doesn't give me as much teal as I would like compared to the other girls doing colors that were like very like monochromatic. Like hers is very there's a majority teal, but there's a lot of different other colors there, which I'm not hating on. I think it pulls the look together. But then they commented on saying that they wish that like she cinched her waist just slightly more, and I was like, really? That's the one thing you could hate on this for?
Well, I kind of agree with the cinching the waist thing, only because she did such a beautiful shape on the other parts of her body that it really would have been accented more if it had been more cinched in. But I think I agree with you about maybe the critique with the different colors. It's one thing to use like an accent color. It's another thing when almost half of the outfit is the gold. And she looks beautiful. Let's not take it away from her. She did this Mother Earth kind of inspiration thing. She looks amazing. She has this beautiful crafted hair. She has a headpiece that lifts up into these cacao leaves, almost like a halo of cacao leaves, up from like a trestle of the vineyard kind of thing, right? And she has this asymmetrical shoulder part and just gold plating along the teal in her outfit. And it's just so beautiful and it's so fashion. And then the opposite side of her shoulder that she used the opposite side of her hip. Take this into consideration, girls. This is where your skirt should be. If you're going to do an asymmetrical, it looks great if you use two different sides as opposed to both sides. But most of the fabric she chose on this underneath part was some of that gold translucent kind of fabric, transparent fabric with teal kind of in there, and then she used it around her leg to give us a little more of the vine look. And so I think that's the only reason she really doesn't make the top two, but she did such an amazing job, and I'm so glad they really gave her the comments and the love that they did because she also used the fabric and cacao leaves in her shoes around the bands, and it's just small little details like that. Those are the things that are the most important.
I agree, and I think that while I do appreciate the detailing that Suki did here, again, I think I can understand why she wasn't top two. I might have maybe put her top two, but I don't want to take anything away from this next girl, who I think was the surprise of the episode. Like we've been waiting for an international queen to kind of stand out, and no offense to her, I was not expecting it to be Kitty's face at all. I think we were even saying it throughout this episode
No.
because she was saying like this episode, she's like, "I'm out, Kitty's out," and we're like, "Oh." yeah, you're out, or like, are you out of the competition? Like the girls were talking to her, like she didn't get the joke, or they edited it to like she didn't get the joke. So I was like, oh no, this is not a good sign. But oh, well, apparently this was a great sign for Kitty because she comes out when I think one of the most elaborate and different silhouettes that we've gotten out of anybody in this challenge. I think that's really what suited her here because she was able to come up with an elaborate idea, kind of along the lines of Siam, but she was able to execute it near flawlessly, I think.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Her wig into a headpiece made of cacao leaves with the stars in the blue and white kind of diamond thing that she's going on. She has blue cacao leaves to begin with, obviously, but she uses her hair into the headpiece, so it's just so together. It's amazing. And then she had made out of wire, I assume. She had wrapped some of the cacao leaves in a around a circular wire that was in front of her and then went to the back of the headpiece. So it was literally a ring of cacao leaves, like engulfing her almost. But she was at the middle of it, like a flower. She was the centerpiece. And we were looking at her and we were like, oh my God. And then I noticed she did kind of that triangle thing that Brigiding had done, right? What made it so much more interesting was that she did, instead of it's bringing up to the shoulder or to connect with just the ring, she actually has two pointed areas that go all the way to her hairline, but in front of the ring, and they go from all the way blue to like white crystalled with blue and white little stones in there, and she has these white gloves come out that she has stoned up, and it's like, this is how you use an accent color. It was so beautiful. She has a little bit of white and blue jewelry on in her neck. She has some right on her waist, and it's beautiful. I agree with you though. I wasn't expecting Kitty Space to really be the breakout girl of the international queens at this point, because all we have seen really was Siam doing well, and then she covered her boots in the cacao leaves as well. Like, she was so smart. She looked amazing. Everyone was eating it up, and she really earned her spot here. And I think not only for the transformation and how good she has like evolved from the competition, but it was just so amazing to look at. You got to give her tens, and especially I think she took those critiques to heart last week that they told her, and maybe that was the fire she needed. And I'm proud of her
Hmm.
to get this far.
I was thinking after we did our like initial video, right? And we were kind of low initially on Kitty, but then I was kind of thinking like again, like we have to think about who she was competing against. She's part of the France 2 cast. Like France 2 is one of the best seasons there is, right? So it's like
Yeah, it's a very strong
I could
season.
see why she might have been at the bottom of that group, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she isn't just as talented. And I think we're seeing like that side of her that we didn't really get to see on her season. I think that's honestly really cool that she's getting a moment like this. So I'm very, very happy for Kitty here. Um, but let's be real. I think the night truly belonged to one girl, and this is her second night in a
Oh,
row, and that's Miss Venus Deluxe. Like, oh, this was so good, so
there's
good.
so many elements. She comes out in the presentation. She has the color white, that creamy white color, right? And here's where you know it was good. She's holding her train in front of her so you can't see. She lets it go, and you see these sculpted, like almost branches or leaves, like cacao, like it was the plant itself engulfing on the back of her body. And she reveals to us this spherical use of the cacao leaves. She spiraled them on one side of her chest, and the spiral continues throughout the outfit and where the cacao leaves will be placed, right? And so on her right shoulder, we see a huge spiral upwards, just amazingly. Actually, yes, it's her right shoulder that has that. And so the left shoulder is very exposed, but on the back of the left shoulder is where all we see the branches and the leaves, the cacao. So it's so beautifully done. And then the twist of it is that she has a beautifully done cacao fan. She's like the only one who had a fan that was good made of the cacao leaves, because Yuhua did that and that was trash. Hers looked garbage. It looked cheap. I was like, throw it out. This girl really came together. She got her shit together, said, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to represent everything. And when she pulls the fan back, she had made a face that's on the other side of her chest in the cacao leaves that
That
was
was
hidden by the
crazy.
fan. It was like reveal to another reveal that we didn't even see coming. Her skin was glittered with, it was just beautiful. She was stunning. Everything about her. We even have like a slightly asymmetrical waist where one side is more flourished out, almost as if the cacao leaves have been made into a flower that then lead into that train, that beautiful train that's just following her. She looked godlike. She is an angel of mass proportions. It was so bad. They were so good, I should say, that Mama Pow, or not Mama Pow, I'm sorry, Pangina Heels was like, could not stand or could not sit there. Pangina Heels had to get up and give a standing ovation. It was like, bitch, this is it. This is amazing. And when you get the judges panel to literally come up here and like literally give you a standing ovation for how good your look is, you know you're that bitch, right?
And
And
for her to
this,
do the second in a row, two
oh my
weeks in a
god,
row now.
I thought Venus. I know we had been talking about it. We were like, is Venus going to be one of the girls that gets cut from the Philippines, possibly early of any of the Philippine girls? Like, I'm a little nervous for her based on her placement in her last season. But no, bitch, Venus is now the like front runner of the competition essentially, and
She's the Khianna at this point.
she is the Khianna. Girl, Venus has said, you know what? No, actually, I am a force to be reckoned with. She's the strongest of all the Filipino queens at this point, and I'm like, no one. I don't think anyone saw this coming. I knew she was talented. We know she had won like a design challenge before, but then when she lost the next design challenge on her season, it was very much a. It was very much like a, well, she got lucky. It wasn't a real win. It was a fluke, you know? And it's it was just so amazing to watch this night for her.
I'm saying like not only did she like very clearly like last week the lip sync was a little kind of rough until like the kind of end, right? Like this time I don't know what it was, maybe it was the song, maybe it was just she was just feeling herself, maybe she's more in her element at this point. But she ate Kitty up. I mean, it didn't help that Kitty didn't know half the lyrics to this Pangina Heels song, but
It wouldn't have mattered if Kitty had known
it
every
did,
single lyric,
right?
every
Wouldn't
single
have
beat,
mattered.
every. It wouldn't have mattered if Kitty listened to this song for 1 year on repeat. There was no beating Venus in this lip sync, baby. Like, I'm so sorry. Venus came, ate, devoured, served. Even the judges said, I think Pangina actually literally said, "Girl, I know you're not hungry because you ate it up on the runway," kind of thing. And I was like, "Yeah, bitch." But not only did she win this lip sync, the most surprising thing to me was the untouched section when the girls thought Kitty Space was going to be at the bottom and Arizona was going to be at the top. I was like,
Yeah, that
Arizona
gagged
has like
me.
the worst outfit. And they were all talking shit. And they're like, I just want to let you know that we did talk some shit and thought you were going to be the bottom, Kitty. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know what they saw versus what I saw versus what they were seeing before she went on the runway. I was gagged. I was gooped. I was shook.
Well, I'm assuming it's probably still a situation where, again, the international girls are the underdogs. So they're gonna probably assume if any of the girls are on the top and they're Filipina, they're probably there for, or sorry, any girls are being left behind and they're Filipina, it's probably because they're in the top. So yeah, I feel like there was a good dose of, I would say, humble pie. I don't know if necessarily they're being that like cocky or whatnot, but I think it was a good eye-opening experience to let them know like, hey, like if you fail just because you're from the Philippines and just because you have a win doesn't mean you're going to be saved, especially if it's in like this epic of a fail that you do. But I don't think I was ever really truly worried that Arizona was going to get sent home, just because
No.
one, it was Viñas that was making the decision, but like two, like it was a versus Ivory, and Ivory had a very clear from start to finish this episode that this was kind of like her swan song. They gave her her story. We got to learn about the situation with her mother, which it really sucks. That is really unfortunate. I do kind of feel some type of way about how I feel like maybe she was using it, because the reason why it didn't come up at all last episode, right? And she was in the bottom two, right? Wasn't she?
Yeah.
So like for it to come up now, Eh,
Well, and then another thing is you
convenient,
might not.
but I'm not gonna. I don't want to jump into why, but like,
I don't want to say that it was like a convenient, but it was weird because we had her talking about her mom and feeling like a failure, and then we had Suki talking about her deceased friend, and we had like some really heart wrenching moments on the runway and stuff, and it was just a lot. But like at the end of the day, like the track record was just so clear. Ivory didn't do well in the first challenge, but she was safe. Ivory didn't do well in the second challenge; she was in the bottom two. Ivory didn't do well in this challenge; she's in the bottom two. Like you really can't send home the girl who was in the top two last week, but just didn't get the win by the lip sync and say, I'm doing track record, because that's what Venus has said she's going to do. Now, what
mhm.
I'm more wondering about is what is in the other lip sync? What is in Kitty's lip sync or lipstick? Because she said her and Ivory were really close. Ivory said they two were like besties. So I'm like, would Kitty have chosen to get rid of Arizona over Ivory just because they're close? That's where it's kind of
Oh,
like, if that
true.
happens, this is gonna get messy real
I do
fast.
kind of see a Nalenia-esque arc going for Kitty at this moment. I don't know if she's
Sure.
necessarily going to be at the top maybe constantly like Delania was, but I do kind of see a situation where maybe it's like because you have like the girls, the homegirl queens, the Rue girls, whatnot, the Filipino girls, and then you have like that one kind of outsider girl that they're all kind of dogging on a little bit, and they all kind of see maybe a certain way that's maybe actually performing a little bit better than they thought so. Like that's what the whole Untucked was kind of giving me was a little bit of that energy from that one other Untucked from Global All Stars that kind of was its own thing. But we'll kind of see. I think what happens next week, especially because we get the Rusical next week, which is going to be fun. Especially because we
So
get
excited.
this crazy bitch Slaysians idea, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. Especially given that it's like our first I guess their first shot at like an international musical. I'm very interested to see what direction they're going to go. If they're going to actually have to sing, if they're going to have things already prepared for them. If it's just going to be a lip syncing thing. I'm curious. I'm very excited because this has been a pretty good season so far. It's been slightly predictable up to this point. Feels like the first three to go out were kind of known here, but you know, tonight I think changed the director or the directive for a few queens that we thought
Trajectory?
were trajectory. Yeah, what did I say? Directive. Yeah, whatever. Tonight changed the trajectory for a few of our queens that we thought were maybe headed out early. I do think that there's a possibility maybe they could hang on a little bit longer than we're expecting. Maybe it's possible we could see a Filipina queen leave a little bit earlier than we were expecting as well too. But I also wouldn't be surprised again if they're the top five. So,
I
um,
mean, I yeah, I think we had this idea that Siam's going to be in the top with the other Filipino queens, right? And then now it was like, oh, Siam didn't do well this challenge, but is it a slip up or is this like going to be a reoccurrence? Kitty did well here, and she hasn't stood out for any of the right reasons thus far. So is this going to be a one time off, or is she going to really show us something? So it's something that we have to look out for. But I think there's a lot of girls that we still haven't seen anything from. Like Yuhua, she's like, "Are we really that bad that all of us came here?" And I remember when she said that in the episode, I told you, I said, "Well, so far, yeah, pretty much." Like there's been a huge discrepancy until this challenge. Really, the only queen we've seen in the top for the international queens has been Siam, and now we had Suki uh and Kitty in the top, and it's like, oh, so now we have other queens who are international men in the top, but the only one that hasn't at this point who's left is Yuha. So
mm,
I don't know. I'm a little nervous for her, and she's talking a big game and has not backed it up once,
it could
in
be a
my opinion.
situation where next week is our put her but shut up week. I could see her doing well in a musical. I could.
Yeah,
She
it
seems
is
like
a
an actress type,
performance
so
improv kind of thing, so it's interesting because we're going back to another performance challenge, and that is exciting for me.
well, Jack, I think we should be good to wrap things up here. But before we do, I do want to ask you. Any final words this weekend? Do you have a question for the audience?
Yeah. Who's your favorite look of this week, and why is it Venus? And tell me the reasons why Venus is the best queen of the design challenge this week. Thank you.
Okay, well, way to leave the question there. But, as always, can't wait to see how this turns out. And hopefully y'all can't either, especially if y'all lasted this long. And thank y'all so much for listening. As always, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and comment below with reasons why Viñas DeLuxe is going to win Slaysian Royale, because she won this one challenge. Sorry, 2 challenges in a row. But until next time, y'all, in behalf of my co-caster, QuackrrJack, I'm Renegade, I'm signing out of here. But remember, keep spilling the tea, y'all. Bye!
Mabu, bye!